morning, ladies and gentlemen, all of us present here. I would start with a brief, a brief note on social media. When you talk about social media, we say social media is engaging, social media is fun, but I say social media is a luxury. Social media is a luxury for those people who have access to resources, and those haves and have-nots, which I'm talking about. So when I'm talking about haves and have-nots, the first thing that comes is that when people have access to smartphones, when people are able to buy smartphones and they have disposable economy, disposable money available for them, and they have little bit of money to buy smartphones on EMI, which I believe everybody does, and smartphones are a very costly thing. And the second one is when you have uninterrupted electricity, right? So when you have constant power supply and then you are able to charge your mobile phone, then you are connected. But the technology has also given you power banks, and based on which you are also connected these days. And another one that I want to talk about is uninterrupted internet connection, right? Right. Thank you. So uninterrupted internet connection is where it's making people go berserk, right? Because when you are at home, you are connected to Wi-Fi. When you are traveling, you have data. When you are, the only time that people go mad is when they are on a flight, and once they get onto the flight, they get mad and they start getting, want to know whether the world has changed in whatever short duration of time that they have had. But again, that I again talk about the concept of availability of disposable income to buy data. Right? So that is where people are also buying data per day, like 2 GB, 3 GB kind of a thing. But I'm talking about a different kind of a scenario where I'm talking about the concept of data rich and the data poor people. So the people in Bhubaneswar, I can say they are data rich people because you have access to uninterrupted electricity, uninterrupted internet, uninterrupted power supply. But whereas where I come from, which I'm geopolitically positioned in Shillong, that is the northeast of India, we are data poor people. We do not have that kind of accessibility to internet. We do not have accessibility to that different kinds of 4G, 5Gs that we people have here. It is not prevalent there. So onto this thing is that now when people have access to internet, they have access to social media, is it creating an information society? Or has it led to a creation of a knowledge society? We do not know. We are yet to find out, because that is what we have been told long back, that there's a leapfrogging happens, right? But in the northeast, the frogs are still in the tadpole stage. The leapfrogging is yet to happen. So in this context, what we did a brief research on how people use social media in the northeast. We factor down on two things. Is that one, how the youth of the northeast of various states have come together and are trying to reinvigorate and then trying to revive the languages and the texts of their tribes. Right? And for these examples, we had this Apatani tribes of the Arunachal Pradesh, the Karbi Anglong tribes of the Upper Assam, right? The Nagamese tribes who are there in Manipur and in Nagaland. And then, of course, you have these Garo, Khasi, these people who are there in Meghalaya. What has happened is that most of the youngsters who have completed their schooling and they have moved to the better cities, like they have gone to Delhi, Hyderabad, Bombay, Bangalore, where they are in data-rich areas, they are connecting with their own counterparts of the same own tribal youngsters, and they're trying to create and reinvent the language or trying to rediscover the script that they have lost long ago. Because in the northeast it was the church influence or the influence of the Britishers, they lost their language. They lost their text. Now they're they have all come together, they've created a group, and with the help of the elderly people back there in the village, and with the people who are located in various parts of the country, they are trying to revive their language and script. There is one important thing that is happening, and that is the kind of a contribution of the social media. That's one thing. And the second one, which is really happened in the context of COVID-19, because COVID, if you see, most of the people in Northeast are not in favor of having a COVID vaccine. So in that context, we also did a study trying to understand why is it so. Then we came to know that most of the tribal people are still hanging on or still hanking on to the traditional health practices. So that is where we try to understand, what is this traditional health practices that they are actually trying to do. But what has happened is that this again, the same youngsters, same elderly people in the villages, they've all come together And they are creating certain kind of a platforms where the knowledge sharing about traditional health practices is happening. Right. So what is happening in this traditional, and that is what it has created a common thread among tribals. And when it creates, it also provides a common stage where they have a shared interest on herbal medicine, traditional medicine, medical media practice, medical practices, and all those things are coming together. And ultimately, it is creating a certain kind of a content that is shareable everywhere. Right. So most of the tribes have their own traditional health practice, and they are sharing it over and above with all the. So they are trying to find a commonality or a common thread between what is there common between them and us. And I'm sure in Orissa, also in other neighboring states, also there are a lot of tribal areas. If you go to Orissa in Niyamgiri, you go to Kalahandi, Bolangir, Koraput, you'll have a lot of tribal people. And that is where my request for the journalism students sitting in this hall is to go and try to explore the traditional knowledge that is still available. And then you disseminate that into the larger public. When I say larger public, as not those people we are addicted to the internet or addicted to social media, but those people who are actually would be interested to learn more about what has been lost during generations, so how that can be revived. So that is something which helped us a lot. And then we also found that because of the social media, a certain kind of a preservation of cultural heritage is also happening, where the youngsters, the older people, they're all coming together and they're bringing together all the indigenous practices that has been lost long back. So that is what something is happening, and then it's creating a certain kind of a markets for the traditional products that are available, right? And when you say traditional products are available, it's also helpful in crisis responses and information sharing that is happening amongst tribes in the Northeast actually. So my hypothesis is that if such things can happen in the Northeast of India, it can also be replicated in another part of the country. It is not a rocket science, and it can always be replicated. So if social media can be used for fun, can be used for to have a thrilling effect, it can also be used for information sharing, and that is how it can also be a greater platform for us to revive whatever the traditional knowledges that had been there, and what are the traditional information that has been there, which has been lost long back. And I believe the seniors, the elderly civilization, the elderly population is all slowly fading away. And I'm sure before they fade out, it's our responsibility to bring back that kind of knowledge into the mainstream, and then keep that kind of a certain kind of knowledge still available for the future generations to use. So these are the two things that predominantly we looked at in the Northeast the context where we said how their social media is used to revive languages and preserve and conserve them. And then second is how the traditional media practices are being revived, are being conserved and preserved. And that is what I said, there's a need for responsible engagement from us as students of journalism and mass communication. It is our responsibility how we can engage, and how as students of journalism that we can go on to the field and bring those case studies back into the classrooms and back into a larger realm for everybody to know that something is a social responsibility that we all need to carry along with us. Thank you so much.